Wordo.
Jay, what's up?
What's up, bud? How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good, man. Long time no see, bud.
Saw you this morning, didn't
I know. What are you drinking over there, bud?
Trying to get some Spindrift collab, maybe.
Attaboy.
Really good.
Sparkling water.
Shannon drinks these all the time. The mango black tea is my favorite. So
what mango black tea? I like it. It. We'll start with the wrestling stuff. We'll go to hockey after. What do you think? Elimination Chamber this week. I know you heard JC and I talking about it. How do you think it's going to shake out?
So you got to think these things backwards, right?
Right.
Yeah. So hearing you guys talk about the women, I think that one's a little bit more, a little bit easier, right?
Right.
With EO. But I don't know. I mean, like, so we're talking. So we have Reigns, we have Punk, we have Cena,
right.
Drew, right? Drew,
yeah,
and Seth, and man,
Logan Paul.
Logan Paul, that's packed, dude.
It is.
I don't know. I'm just mad because I can't. I'm actually going to be on a flight back from DC in the middle of it, so I'm going to have to try to figure out a way. Sometimes the reception isn't great on the plane,
right?
So I don't know. I feel like. I don't think it's Reigns. I don't think it's Cena. So, and I don't know if it's Punk either. I don't know. This one's got me really, really twisted.
It's got you jacked up, bud.
Yeah, I mean, you have all the guys there you want, right? So, I don't know. The thing about Chamber too is like they're just going to beat the crap out of each other too.
Oh my god, it's such a physical outcome,
and then a bunch of dudes who just hate each other. So I think that's I'm just looking forward to a really good like beating the shit out of each other, you know.
Yeah.
But
you're not allowed to say shit on the podcast, buddy.
I can't.
No, you can't.
Definitely
That's why you definitely can, buddy. Screw you, FCC. Kiss my entire ass.
Here's the thing: I can't get anything in the newspaper, man. Like I can't get. If I tell you some of the stories about getting certain words in the paper because our I'm going rogue here a little bit, but our policy is about like whether there's a value in the word in context, right?
Right.
And you can make an argument, for any word. In some ways that involves context that it's valuable. So I've lost most of those fights in terms of like that it means more because the guy said
right
shit or fuck or whatever.
Yeah.
Man, don't give me this free reign, Jay, because you might be open up a box here. But
can of worms, buddy. We're opening up the can of worms here. Let me ask you this, because I've always wondered this. Is it the Tampa Bay Lightning or the Tampa Bay Lightning are?
This is a great question. So I'm going to give you a little inside the newsroom here. So
please do, because a lot of people are like, this doesn't sound like English. I'm like,
yeah. So there's a, if you look at, you look at other teams like the Heat, the Jazz, right? And
hold on, buddy. Hold on.
Yeah.
I just took my headset out of my ears, adjusting here. I've been sitting in the same spot. Gotta put my headset back on. I'm so excited about this conversation. We can just yank these right out of my ears. All right, I'm back. Holy smokes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So we do have our own separate style book, right? Which is different than the AP style book. Now, obviously the first things like Lightning, Heat, Jazz, whatever, teams like that, it technically should be is, right? But our style is to do it as R. But obviously, when you reference to it as a individual, like like Tampa Bay, we reference the Lightning as Tampa Bay. We do is, but it's funny because sometimes we have these just kind of on teams. We have like these kind of get-togethers where we do like copy editing drills and stuff like that. And a lot of people who aren't necessarily sports people, they were like, well, why is it R?
Right.
Why is Lightning R? And so there was a big discussion that really went all the way to the top, where we really, very recently, we had to decide again, like, is it or is it R? So it's always been R. I think at one point we actually stylistically had it as is. But
I thought it was the other. I thought it was the other way around. I thought it was.
It is
always...
R, Lightning R. When we reference them to the Tampa Bay Lightning R. Now, if we just reference to Tampa Bay, it's Tampa Bay is. So because you're talking about just one thing versus. Right. But I mean, obviously, it's the team. Or if I say the team, then it's is. But when I reference Lightning as in any references, the Lightning R. So, but again, the conversation, there's no real like right or wrong. It's just what side you decide to take on it, because we see it all different times. Like, you know, like I said, with different teams like the Heat, or will be the Heat, the Jazz,
the teams that aren't
the teams that aren't plural,
don't have the S
names, right? So, yeah, but it's a constant conversation, one that comes up even when you don't think it's going to come up, and it's just about which side you're going to take. And I'm, you know, in 10 years we might be saying Lightning is, and it constantly kind of changes. But there's all these discussions that we always have about, you know, stuff like that. That, you know, because at the end of the day, what the main thing is, if you're going to take us one side or the other, is just want to be consistent. So, that's kind of where it is now. Lightning,
just something that Rick Stroud and Mark Topkin don't have to deal with.
No, they do not. They don't.
What do you make of this team, buddy? 6 wins in a row. You know, John Cooper doesn't seem to think that much has changed. They are finding the back of the net, but you know, is it just that the consistency, just the even keel, not getting too high, not getting too low, and kind of things progressing to the mean now?
Yeah, I mean, you know, Coop. I mean, he's so good at kind of like keeping everything calm with this team, and obviously, you know, they had dealt with some tough stretches through January, and that was obviously a beast of a schedule, like we all talked about. But I think he's made them believe that, you know, when things weren't going right, and that they were still playing the right way for the most part, and that they were going to get that, you know, the benefit of results eventually. And you know, no doubt, kind of, I thought those, you know, you talked about those 4 games before the break were huge. You know, like they dropped those games against Ottawa. They even dropping one of those games against Ottawa. You know, it's a little bit different situation, but, or it could be a different situation, but grabbing all those games and kind of, I think they tell you that, you know, they were a little bit gassed. You know, that was just like you just had to grind it out. And I think those games kind of set the bar for, like, you know, listen, like there's times you just got to get the points and figure it out. And I think they were able to do that, and they've kind of pushed that momentum forward into this one, into these past 2 games. And obviously the last game, I think, was just one of their best defensive games, of the year. And, you know, when you look at how they were able to shut down, for the most part, McDavid and Draisaitl, and really kind of expose some of the weaknesses of the Oilers too. You know, I mean, like, you know, and just the timeliness of their goals. You know, I think that, you know, they early in the year, they were those, you know, when they allowed the first goal of the game, you know, they'd allow the second goal of the game. You know, a day like the other night, you know, they allow the first goal of the game, and then they come back with a goal from a guy who probably doesn't score very much, and Mikey Isamont, you know, 2 minutes later, you know, and then they get the next one on the power play. And I think it's that kind of timeliness. Just and on the other side as well, you know, we know how good Vasilevsky is, and he's been so good during the stretch. But not only is he making saves, but he's making the timely saves when they need him the most. And I think he's done that all year. You know, like, look at the goals that he's allowed. They haven't been in like really bad spots. It's just been like, you know, times when it's, you know, they haven't been those momentum killer goals sometimes. But I just think things are going right that way. And when you build confidence and you figure out, you know, how to do those things, it just sends you into a different level confidence wise. You know, I mean, like Eric and I were talking about this today is, you know, the way they're playing right now, like, I think for the first time in a couple of years, I really think that they're a team that you really think that they can do some stuff if they can keep this up, you know, deep into the playoffs. And, you know, the past couple of years, I think the weaknesses that they had, and some of the numbers that they were putting up, whether it was those goal differential numbers, those 5-on-5 numbers, the scoring chance numbers. They lean so much on the power play.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little different now. It's and when you get the points to rack it up, and all of a sudden you look at those standings, and I think you're starting to see it separate itself a little bit. The top half of the Atlantic versus the bottom half of the Atlantic, and they're obviously in that third spot. And that's just I just they've done a lot to really impress me the last couple of weeks, and before the break and after the break, and this seems to be more of a team that's kind of primed for postseason success, and now they're showing it. And it's to be honest, it's pretty fun to watch because you go in the room and I think you see a confidence in this team now that maybe wasn't there, last year or even the year before. It does seem a little bit more like, to be honest, just being around this group, maybe more like that 2022 team, that went to the final, and obviously a lot of things have to go your way to get there. But I don't think they're scared of anyone right now. I don't think there's anyone that's really in their way per se.
Why do you think that is, Ed? Like, is it the personnel difference? Is it having Gensel in there? Is it having Moser in there? Like, because it's just, I know those are just two guys, but I mean, Moser really seems to settle this defense playing with Victor Hedman, and then Gensel obviously with the 5-on-5 numbers. But is it that? Is it the guys taking the next step? Is it Cirelli and Hagel and Paul taking a more prominent leadership role, or is it guys Radish and getting better? You know what I mean? Guys like that.
Yeah, when you look at the questions that we saw, or the kind of the what was missing in the beginning of the year, and what we see now, it's a much different team. And like you said, a lot of that has to do with some of that development, whether it's the Hagel and the Cirellis. I mean, coming into their own and really becoming elite two-way players. And obviously, like you said, Mosier, you combine that and Mosier coming back, and we talked about how the calmness that Ryan McDonough brings as well on that blue line. When you combine that with Mosier coming back, I think there's this team has just really kind of grown into itself. And there's no doubt, like you talk about guys like Paul and Hagel. These are guys that came in from the outside, at this time of the year, and but with the idea that they were going to be a part of the next wave of bolts that were going to try to lead this team back to a Stanley Cup. So those guys have been great. I know you talked to Nick about being a guy who can play center, who can play wing, and excel in both of those spots. And you've seen that growth in his game as well. And even the guy like Gherkinsons. I asked Coop about this today. It's like he's not going to blow you away with the numbers, and he never really has in his career. But the way he's played, I really like the way he's played, and I love the way he played the other night in the Hagel Cirelli line. And when I always go back to when we saw the Cup teams and what made them great was that you could throw lines out there that really did a great job of being really hard to play against. And we'll always talk about the Gord line with Billy Coleman and Barclay Goodrow for forever, but that really was the line that, and Cooper said talk about it today. I think, what is it? Blake Coleman's playing the 600th career NHL game tonight, and they don't win a cup without guys like that. Whether it was Goodrow, whether it was Coleman, obviously Gord, a huge part of it. And you look at the Panthers last year, and it became very obvious in the series against the Lightning is, you don't have they didn't have big names on that fourth line, but those guys were tough to play against, and that's how you get. That's how not only how you make the playoffs, but that's how you survive in the playoffs is stuff like that. The Islanders teams for those years that you'd have a tough time now remembering the fourth line guys on well, not you can remember them, but those Islander teams when they made it to the cup to the conference finals. But those teams were built to be very tough to play against when it mattered the most in the playoffs. And I do feel that's really the difference right now is that this team is really becoming tough to play against, and there's so many things a part of it. It's the energy that the Cirelli line brings. It's some of this depth play that we're starting to see, whether it's on the defensive side of the puck or the offensive side of the puck. And obviously, no matter what, at the end of the day, when they have 88 in goal, they and he's playing the way that he's been playing is, you have a supreme confidence that you can, win games and overcome, the little bumps in the road that the playoffs bring.
Everybody remembers Casey Zizekas, Kyle Clutterbuck, and Matt Martin in that series at Encina. Come on now. You know the deal, brother. No, but what a great series. And you're right. The one goal that was scored in that game 7 was a shorthanded goal. And Cirelli and Hagel teaming up to put the puck in the back of the net. So, yeah, a great series there. And then obviously 1-0 in the game winner, Ross Colton from David Savard, from Ryan McDonough. A couple of goals that will live in memories. Tampa Bay Lightning fans forever. Do you think, and I asked Eric this yesterday, and I want to get your input because I don't know if he and I he said, no, it doesn't change. I think I might be leaning a little in the other direction. Do you think that the way that the team has played over the last couple of weeks has changed the way that Julien Brisebois is going to view the trade deadline?
In some ways, yes. In some ways, no, I think.
Right. I'm kind of with you there.
I mean, like, I do think that when you see certain contributions from certain players, you feel a little bit better about things.
Do you think they're feeling it? Do you think guys like Gonsalves and Gergensons are kind of looking at, because even the players are going to ask you, do you guys need to pick up some more players? Like, if you say that, you're kind of damning the players that you play with. Do you think they feel the heat a little bit too?
Right. Well, I think when you go in the room, there's definitely at this time of the year, guys hate answering those questions, right? Because they don't want to be disrespectful to the room that they have.
For sure.
And they don't want to think ahead of like, oh, well, we need it. Right. Now, obviously, we know that Julian's going to try to get a guy or two. He's done it every year. He's figured it out. The draft capital isn't as high as they've had, but they've still got some picks to move, no doubt. But it was interesting when we talked to Julian about, like, he kind of admitted his, quote unquote, maybe missteps a little bit at the trade deadline too, as much as we talk about Hagel and Paul and how great and how much of the identity that they've become a part of this team. He did say, like, sometimes there are misses like Tanner Janot.
He mentioned, and I was kind of unprovoked too. He mentioned that too. Right. So good on him.
To him, because I've never necessarily heard him say that, and obviously you can't say it until you move a guy either. Right. But I thought that was really interesting to hear when we talked to him. But obviously that was several weeks ago, and it always kind of changes through the week, day to day, stuff like that. But there's no doubt, I think, that they still want to get that depth, scoring, and the defensive core, you can never have too much defenseman depth. Even though I do think that right now with Mosier back, they do, you've got 7 guys and you've got Max Crozier in the minors, and you've got some good people there. Radish obviously become, earned a role and with the different things that he's done, especially on the power play. And you never know, like you're one block shot away from losing a couple guys,
Right.
But, and again, the forward depth, the thing that's different this year, as opposed to all the other years, is that they have a lot of flexibility with the cap space. Before I think even last year they were holding the Seabrook contract, which put them around LTIR, and then they went over LTI with the Sergachev injury. So they were able to, which actually helped them to go out and get guys like Dumba and Player. If they don't have that injury, they're actually right. They really don't have the ability to go out and get those guys. So that was actually interesting the way that happened. And when it happened, Julian was the whole time. He was like, listen, like, I want to make it clear. I'd rather have Mikhail Sergachev than have to like finagle with LTI. And he's always been this guy that, even though everyone talks about how the Lightning have used LTI to their benefit over the years, that you don't want to be in that situation, that you actually rather be in a situation like you are now, where you can almost stash cap space when you have that cap space. And it's obviously the reason why they've gone 12-6 for so long over the course of, during Mosier's injury over those 2 months. So, you're in a different spot where you can actually kind of, you can decide whether, what kind of guy you need. And I think that's probably the biggest difference in last year, is like they have the space to actually give themselves a little bit of flexibility. Whereas, last year, years before, you didn't have the space, you had to use LTI, and you probably needed to have help from another team to make a contract, that contracts work. So this year's in that context is a little different. It opens a whole bunch of different doors for them in terms of what the next week could look like. I mean, like, I don't think it's going to happen, but like, they could actually afford Miko Rantanen. You know,
Oh God.
if they were going to do that, you know, I mean, which is, I don't think that it's going to happen. I don't want to blow the doors off on that or anything like that, but like, you know, when he's obviously a big name that everyone's talked about the past few days and weeks, but you know, a couple years ago, you know, you would throw it off the board right away. But you know, it is possible with the money that they've saved and what they have available under the cap.
Yeah, that'd be wild. Be like, yeah, you know what? We're not going to sign him because there ain't no way you're not signing him if you bring him here, right? But if you wanted a rental for 1 year, yeah, you could bring him in if you could, where it wasn't even feasible in years past. And what you got up?
One other thing today is that, you know, there's no doubt that I think, and maybe this kind of like maybe this kind of died down a little bit last year, but I do think that this is a place where guys do want to play, and that matters at the trade deadline.
Right.
You know, and you know whether it, you know, we saw that when Hagel and Paul came in, and you know you get the taste of chasing a cup and you want to be a part of it. But you know, I honestly think some of the Four Nations stuff helps too. You know, you see, you know, how those guys played, where there was Jake Gensel, whether it was you know the Canadian guys with, you know, the Sorelli line and or Victor Hedman, obviously the leadership that he brings, you know, and everyone paid attention to that. The players paid attention to that too. So. You know, I'm not saying that they're going to trade for a guy that's going to, you know, they're going to sign for 7 years or anything like that. But, you know, you do think about that, too, when you're trying to acquire guys. And, you know, we didn't think about that necessarily then, but it is amazing to think about how much Julian did think for the future in those Paul and Hagel trades a couple of years ago. You know, at that point, we're thinking, okay, these are two guys who are just going to help them get to the cup, you know, the cup again and another, maybe a three-peat. But the way those two guys will really become a part of the fabric of this organization, not just now, but over the next 5-6 years at, you know, what are going to be really value contracts when we look at the way the salary cap is going to keep going up, is pretty amazing. So don't think that he's not thinking that as well.
Think about those deals too for Sorelli and Chernak, right? I
Absolutely.
mean, those things would go up, and it didn't work out for Sergachev, but you know, listen, he was trying to get out in front of a lot of that stuff. What do you got up right now on TampaBay.com/sports, the Tampa Bay Times sports section, all things Lightning?
Yes. So Romano wrote a column I think it was yesterday about just what to look at the trade deadline. You know, again, kind of what we're talking about. You know, Julian's going to, you know, have his irons in the fire, and no doubt he's going to try to make some moves to make this team better, knowing that you know, this team might be better positioned than last year's team or 2 years ago's team. I have a pretty cool story about a kid who is a former, grew up in the Tampa Bay area in Lakewood Ranch. His dad, I'm not sure you know Rob Aller, who was
So I saw the helmet. I took a picture the other day.
So Rob used to be the Lightning TV producer for 17 years, and his son Nolan grew up loving hockey. You know, was a big Steven Stamkos fan. He was actually a Thunder kid back in 2012 when he was 12 years old, and always wanted to be a hockey player, but kind of got this bug through sim racing, and now is in his second year on the Indy Next circuit, which is, you know, obviously they have their first race of the year at the Grand Prix in St. Pete. So this is his second year racing on that circuit. It's kind of basically the AAA of IndyCar. And but he was able to, through a lot of planning and work, he's going to wear a Lightning themed race suit and helmet, which is totally, it's really cool. Like it's one of those fun stories. You got to get like the cross pollination of two different sports, but you know, when you hear about, you know, the inner workings of getting this suit made to down to the details that Colton Wilson, the head equipment manager of the Lightning, basically sent in the colors, the specs, and everything like that. It basically looks entirely like the Lightning's third jersey, that black jersey with the stripes, and he's got the bolts going down the side and stuff like that. And then the paint job that he got on his helmet is actually done by Ray Bishop, who is like this famous, you know, hockey goalie mask painter. He's done Hasek and Belfour, Ryan Miller, guys like that. And they were able to basically get the look at Vasilevsky's mask, his current mask, and do kind of something off of that one. And you look at it, there's a lot of different homages to Vasilevsky's mask. So that was cool too. So it's a cool story. I think people will like it. and like I said, it's not inside hockey or anything like that. It's just kind of a cool story about a kid who grew up in locally, and like it means a lot to him to do this, to wear this race suit in St. Pete. You know, like I said, he's from here. His dad played a big role in with the organization as in TV and on the TV broadcast, and so that was a fun one to write, and that one's online and in the paper in the newspaper today. So it's cool when you get to write those stories because it's kind of off ice, but still, you know, and especially when you know with the Grand Prix in town this weekend, there's no better time to really do it. And like I said, this I think Nolan really like I can't really put into words how special I think he thinks this is for him to be able to do this. So
it meant a lot to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go check it out, tampabay.com/sports. Sign up for the Tampa Bay Times today. Support local. I cannot stress that enough. Go get the hard copy when it's available. And always check out our guy, Eddie Encina, Eddie in the Yard on Twitter/X. Appreciate you, my friend. Enjoy your lunch. If you didn't eat it yet, I'm going to Publix now to go get me a sandwich. And I'll see you later on tonight at Emily. Appreciate you, bud.
All right, buddy. Take care. See you later tonight.
Throwing up the ones. Big Oos, Ed Encina. Great.